Okay, so, it's funny. The other day I was thinking of Monopoly. Like board game, right?
Yeah.
And we've all played it. We've all been there rolling the dice, hoping for the best.
Right.
But you start to realize it's like kind of the same people, right?
Yeah.
Who end up with all the hotels on Boardwalk and Park Place.
Right.
Makes you wonder, right? Is it just luck?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there something more to it? Like some sort of underlying strategy, a knack for, spotting opportunities and grabbing them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that got me thinking about finances, right? Like building a secure financial life.
Mm-hmm.
Is it similar?
Absolutely. You bring up a really interesting point. What might appear as just random chance or luck often has a lot to do with, fundamental principles in play, like things that influence the outcome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to explore in this deep dive. We have a fantastic resource here, 7 Financial Thoughts on Life by且平. Think of this as your personal guide, right? To understand really essential financial ideas that you can actually put to use and help you to build wealth. And we're going to unpack it all, really, with you in mind.
Yeah, and I think it's so important for us to acknowledge, that for a lot of people, especially in the current economic climate, the world of finance can feel really distant, right? And kind of overwhelming, complicated. Like, is it just for the wealthy?
Yeah.
Especially when you look around and you see an economy that's described, as like an M-shaped society,
right?
Where the middle class is shrinking, right?
Yeah.
And the upper class and the lower class are growing.
Yeah.
And when young people are entering the workforce and they're facing like the reality of lower starting salaries, it's easy to feel kind of stuck, or like just discouraged. Like, why should I even try to like improve my financial situation?
Yeah. And that's why this deep dive is so important. It's to kind of cut through all of that, right? All that confusing language and the overwhelm, and just like give you the practical insights that you can use no matter where you're starting. So this book touches upon 7 core financial principles. Thinking about how you think about money, your mindset, making plans, developing helpful habits, understanding investment, and even enjoying the wealth that you build. So we'll cover those key areas.
And to really highlight why having a clear direction matters, the book starts off with this really memorable story. It's about the white horse that accompanied the monk Tang Sanzang on his journey, his long and really difficult journey to retrieve Buddhist scriptures. And this horse was initially just an ordinary horse, but it was the only one that was willing to embark on this incredibly difficult and dangerous journey. Yep. All the other horses and donkeys were just daunted by the challenge, right? By the hardship, by the danger. They were scared. They were like, no, we're just going to stay in our familiar routine. But this white horse, it embarked on this journey with Tang Sanzang, faced all these obstacles, and ultimately, at the very end, upon successful completion of the journey, became this like celebrated figure.
So they get back, and the other animals are like, "Whoa!
Yeah, right.
You've totally transformed. What happened?"
Yeah. They were amazed by this transformation, and they were really curious. Like, how did you achieve this? And the white horse, the reply is really, really insightful. It said that the path that you walked every day in the mill was the same length as mine, but you walked in circles. I set a goal and persevered step by step.
It's so true, right?
It's really profound, right? The difference that having that clear objective, that goal makes.
Yeah.
And without it, it's easy to just feel like you're running in place, right? And what's so fascinating here is that this directly relates to our financial lives. A lot of people work diligently day after day, but without clearly defined financial goals, and a concrete plan to reach them, they end up feeling like they're making very little progress, right? Like they're just going through the motions.
Right. So that's kind of the aim of this deep dive, is to provide you with those actionable insights, to maybe even shift your perspective on what it means to kind of build this richer life. And it's not just about monetary wealth,
right?
But it's also about feeling prepared for the future, having a sense of independence, and knowing that you're moving forward with intention. So let's jump into some of these fundamental ideas from the book, starting with this crucial aspect of overcoming those initial excuses.
Right.
That can really prevent people from even beginning to consider their financial well-being.
Yeah.
So the book actually tackles some of these really common objections head on, right? Things like, I don't earn enough money.
Yeah.
That feeling that many young people have of being kind of stuck at that 22,000 mark.
Right.
Or my life is just too hectic. I just don't have time for financial planning.
Right, and those are such genuine and very, very understandable concerns that so many people face, right?
Yeah.
So first of all, let's just address that feeling of not having enough money.
Okay.
Right. The book makes a really vital point here, and that is that managing your finances is not about how much money you have. It's about understanding your cash flow.
Okay.
The money coming in versus the money going out, right?
Right.
It's about knowing the difference between needs and wants.
Right. Yeah.
And if your expenses consistently exceed your income, then the focus should shift to finding ways to increase that income.
Right. And there's a really interesting little story in the book about a nephew who started out at a salary of around 22,000, right?
Huh?
And instead of kind of feeling stuck at that level, he really made an effort to invest in himself, particularly in improving his English language skills. And that opened up the opportunity for him to work at a foreign-owned hypermarket as a store manager.
Wow.
Which naturally came with a much better salary.
Right.
It really illustrates that, your current situation isn't necessarily fixed.
Absolutely.
It can improve.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that those first few years of your career, the first 5 years, are really a prime opportunity for both saving as much as you can and also investing in yourself.
Right.
Which involves, like developing your professional skills, your language abilities, gaining new experiences, just broadening your knowledge base.
Nah.
Even familiarizing yourself with investment tools. This is the period where you're laying the groundwork for your future financial success.
Okay, so what about that feeling of not enough time,
Yeah.
Because life can be crazy busy.
Life is busy, absolutely. Yeah. But the book really reframes financial planning as a priority, right?
Okay.
Rather than this enormous time-consuming task. It suggests that, even dedicating a small, consistent amount of time to learning about personal finance can have huge benefits over the long run. It's not about, spending hours every day. It's about, just making financial awareness a regular part of your routine.
Yeah. So then there's also this feeling of, I don't know enough.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
It can be intimidating. I don't know about stocks and bonds and all this stuff.
Yeah, you hear these terms and it can feel really overwhelming. But the book counters that by really highlighting, that acquiring knowledge is an essential step. Right. No one's born with this understanding. And there's actually a really encouraging example shared in the book about, these older individuals who at first they thought that like advanced technology, it was just irrelevant to them in retirement. But then when they decided that they wanted to start investing, that desire motivated them to learn about those very industries,
Yeah.
so they could understand where their money was going. So sometimes the motivation to manage your finances effectively can actually be this huge catalyst for learning new things.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Like necessity, right?
Yeah.
Is the mother of invention, even when it comes to finance. Now, another significant hurdle for a lot of people is this fear of losing money.
Yeah.
And that can be a huge barrier to even getting started with investing.
Absolutely. And the book acknowledges that the potential for losses is an inherent part of investing, right?
Yeah.
But it stresses how important it is to not allow that fear to just prevent you from taking any action at all.
Right.
Right. And learning through direct experience, even if it involves starting with small amounts, it can be so valuable. And there's this really interesting anecdote about a student who actually intentionally invested small amounts of money. And they even experienced some, minor losses a few times. And what they call it is like going bankrupt on a small scale. But they did it specifically to get this firsthand understanding of how the market dynamics actually work.
Wow. That's pretty bold.
It is. And it might not be for everyone, but the underlying principle is really important. And that is that the potential returns that you can realistically expect from the stock market over the long run are typically much higher than what you would earn in a standard savings account.
Right.
Right. So the book kind of encourages you to have a degree of courage within your own comfort level, of course, when it comes to risk, and to not let fear completely dictate your financial decisions.
Right. And to illustrate the power of time and consistent effort, the book emphasizes this concept of compound interest.
Yes.
Even quoting Albert Einstein as saying it's one of those powerful forces in the universe.
Yeah.
And it introduces the rule of 72. Can you explain that rule?
Absolutely. So the Rule 72 is this really useful shortcut to quickly estimate how long it'll take for an investment to double in value, given a fixed annual rate of return. And the calculation is actually pretty straightforward. It's just you divide 72 by the annual interest rate. So for example, if you have an investment that yields a 12% annual return, 72 divided by 12 is 6, meaning that your investment would roughly double in about 6 years thanks to the effects of compound interest.
So it's really remarkable. It demonstrates that even saving consistently over an extended period can lead to huge growth.
Exactly. Yeah. And the book emphasizes that while compound interest might not lead to rapid wealth accumulation, that cumulative effect over time, especially when combined with regular contributions and a reasonable rate of return. It's really significant. It's like the financial equivalent of slow and steady wins the race.
I like that. Okay, so we've addressed some of those common excuses that kind of hold people back. Now, the book moves into this really, really interesting area, which is thinking like the wealthy.
Yeah.
And I love this section because it's not about suddenly, becoming a millionaire.
Right.
But it's about adopting certain mindsets.
Yeah.
And cultivating specific habits.
Exactly. And the book highlights this really noteworthy statistic. Approximately 80% of millionaires are first generation.
Wow.
Right. And that challenges the common perception that wealth is primarily inherited. It demonstrates that building wealth is attainable for individuals from diverse backgrounds. And the book identifies 3 key habits that are frequently observed among financially successful people.
I'm eager to hear what those are. So what are they? What are these habits that we can start incorporating into our lives?
So the first one is frugality. Now, it's really important to understand that this doesn't mean being miserly. Or denying yourself any enjoyment. It's about being thoughtful with your spending. Right? Making every dollar count. The book gives these great examples like Warren Buffett. He's well known for living in this relatively modest home and avoiding unnecessary extravagance. And Boone Pickens, who, the famous oil tycoon, who is also known for his frugal habits. He would only buy like a couple new suits every few years. He would always use a shopping list. The author also shares observations about his own students, who have achieved financial success but maintain like a pretty modest lifestyle.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
Right. It's not about that outward display of wealth, right? It's about, those principles of building and preserving it.
Exactly. And recognizing genuine value. Right. So frugality, as the book defines it, is about spending with intention, with wisdom, and ensuring that your money is allocated to things that genuinely matter to you and avoiding like impulsive or wasteful expenditures. It's about enjoying life fully, without being excessive.
Okay, so what's the second one? What's the second key habit?
The second one is reading.
Okay.
The book cites data indicating that a much higher percentage of wealthy individuals engage in regular reading compared to those who are less financially successful. And the benefit isn't just about passively absorbing information. It's about the knowledge gained. Right? The sparking of new ideas, developing this deeper understanding of business opportunities. And the world around you.
So it's about continuous learning, kind of constantly expanding your perspectives.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the book stresses, earning money is a skill that can be developed. And having this broad base of knowledge can help you identify opportunities that others might overlook. It also cautions against just, accumulating information without engaging in critical thought. Right? The key element is to really analyze and internalize what you read so you can form your own informed opinions.
Right.
And translate that knowledge into practical skills.
Right, so you have to actively process and apply it, right?
Yeah.
And what's the third habit of the wealthy?
The third one is creating and consistently using daily action lists. The book really highlights the importance of organization and self-discipline in achieving your goals, both in your professional life and in your financial endeavors. it mentions statistics showing that a significant proportion of wealthy individuals make and complete daily to-do lists.
So it's about being really deliberate with your time.
Yeah.
Kind of focusing on the tasks that will move you closer to your objectives.
Exactly, yeah. It's about, bringing structure to your day and ensuring that you're consistently taking steps, even if they're small steps towards your larger goals.
Right.
So by prioritizing tasks and staying organized, you're less likely to waste time.
Yeah.
And you're more likely to actually achieve your objectives incrementally.
So it seems like these are all pretty actionable habits.
Yeah.
That anyone can, begin implementing no matter what their current financial situation is.
That's the key insight, yeah. It's about adopting these fundamental mindsets and behaviors that actually contribute to long-term success.
Now, the book also delves into some really practical financial strategies. And I know we got a question from a listener about this very topic, asking what should they do with a small amount of surplus cash each month, like around 3,000 NTD.
Right.
Should they save it or should they invest it?
Yeah, that's a great question and a very, very common one too. And the book's recommendation really aligns with the principle of establishing this solid financial foundation first.
Okay.
So with a relatively small surplus like that, the initial priority should be on building an emergency fund. So money that's readily available for unexpected expenses, right?
Right.
And investing in yourself, like we talked about earlier. So the book generally advises delaying any significant financial investments for, maybe the first 5 years of your career while you focus on gaining a solid understanding of the investment landscape.
Okay, so you got to kind of build that safety net, right?
Yeah.
For the unexpected.
Yeah.
And you also need to kind of equip yourself, right? With the knowledge before you go and dive into the complexities of investing.
Absolutely, yeah. And the book, it stresses that financial planning is intrinsically linked to your overall life planning.
Okay.
It's about aligning your financial goals with your broader life aspirations, such as, getting married, buying a home, raising a family,
right,
eventually reaching retirement.
Yeah.
So it encourages you to really envision your desired future lifestyle and then tailor your financial plans to actually support that vision.
So it's not just dealing with these abstract numbers, right? It's about using those numbers to kind of build the life you want to live.
Absolutely. And a really fundamental strategy that the book stresses is saving money first before you allocate any funds for spending. And the author even shares a personal anecdote about, when he first returned to teaching and had a young family to support. And to build their savings, they practiced significant frugality and successfully saved their initial pot of gold, which then gave them the capital to begin investing later on.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
So this really illustrates the core concept of paying yourself first, prioritizing savings from each paycheck.
That's a great habit to cultivate. So how does the book suggest that we manage our day-to-day cash flow effectively?
It stresses the importance of diligently tracking, your income and your expenditures, essentially like creating a budget and sticking to it.
Right.
Right. And this practice can help you gain a clear understanding of where your money's actually going.
Yeah.
And then you can identify those areas where you might be able to reduce spending or make some adjustments.
Right.
The book even mentions that, budgeting apps can be really useful in simplifying this tracking process. Right. It's all about, cultivating mindfulness.
Yeah.
About your spending habits.
Okay, and the book also introduces several different kind of systems for managing your accounts.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's the 3-part method, the envelope method, the 6 jars method.
Yeah.
Could you give us a brief overview of those?
Absolutely. So these are all different frameworks designed to help you organize and allocate your money effectively, right? So the 3-part method is a relatively simple approach where you divide your income into these 3 main categories.
Okay.
Based on your personal financial goals. So, for example, this could be savings and investments, essential living expenses, and then discretionary spending.
Right. Okay.
Right. And the allocation, the specific percentages that you allocate for each category would depend on, your individual circumstances and your priorities.
Right.
So pretty simple and adaptable.
Okay.
Now, the envelope method, This is more of a behaviorally focused approach
Right.
that centers on controlling your spending by allocating like specific amounts of cash for various spending categories like, groceries, transportation,
Right.
entertainment.
Yeah.
And then you literally place that designated amount of cash into these separate envelopes for
Perfect.
each category.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so once the cash in a particular envelope is gone, is depleted, you can't spend any more in that category for that budget-in period.
Right.
So it's this really, really tangible and an immediate way to kind of manage your spending and stay within your limits.
So that's got to be pretty effective for people who, if they're using digital transactions and they're kind of overspend pretty easily.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It can be really, really effective for gaining tighter control over your spending.
Okay.
Now, the 6 jars method, which, gained popularity, through the work of T. Harv Eker, it involves dividing your income into 6 distinct accounts, or, he calls them jars.
Right, jars.
With suggested allocation percentages. So you have financial freedom, right, which is for investments, passive income generation. You have education for ongoing personal and professional development. Necessities,
right,
for those essential living expenses like, your housing, your food, your bills. Play.
I like that.
Right, for leisure and enjoyment.
Yeah.
You have long-term savings for spending. So this is for future purchases, like a down payment on a house, for instance.
Right.
And then give for charitable contributions or helping others.
Right.
So this method aims to kind of create this balanced approach where you're addressing both your immediate needs, right, and your enjoyment, but you're also focusing on long-term financial growth and giving back. So, all of these systems just offer different structures to kind of help you gain control over your finances and intentionally allocate your funds.
So it's really about finding the system that really aligns with your style and your needs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that helps you to manage money in a way that feels effective and sustainable.
Yeah, it's about taking a proactive approach and gaining control over that cash flow.
Now, the book also emphasizes this really critical role of hard work, right, in your primary career and the importance of continuous investment in yourself.
Yeah.
So it makes it clear that building that initial financial foundation often begins with your professional efforts.
Absolutely. Yeah. The book, it really stresses that dedicated effort in your primary career. It's really fundamental for establishing that initial financial base.
Yeah.
And it emphasizes the importance of continuously increasing your value, right, in the workplace.
Right.
To really maximize your earning potential.
But it also cautions against solely relying on a fixed salary as your only path to long-term wealth accumulation, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And it actually refers to the work of economist Thomas Piketty, particularly his observations in Capital in the 21st century, which suggests that historically the returns on capital, like investments, have often outpaced the growth of economic output and wages.
Okay.
So in simpler terms, money that's invested tends to grow at a faster rate than income earned solely from your job.
Right.
So while your salary is, undoubtedly crucial, it's also important to consider investment as a vital component of long-term wealth creation.
So the book, it clarifies that just depending on compound interest alone may not be enough to reach those huge financial goals.
That's right. Yeah, well, compound interest is a powerful tool for wealth growth. Achieving substantial wealth solely through its effects typically requires a significant initial amount of capital.
Right.
And a consistently high rate of return maintained over a very long duration.
Yeah.
So it's unlikely to be the sole driver of significant wealth accumulation without those other factors.
So what does the book suggest as effective ways to kind of accelerate wealth building, beyond just your regular salary?
It really emphasizes the importance of actively seeking opportunities to increase your income through various means, such as, taking on those side hustles or developing additional skills that can help you qualify for higher paying positions or enable you to, offer valuable services outside of your primary job.
Right.
And the author actually shares his own experience of writing articles and giving lectures, in addition to his teaching responsibilities.
Right.
To kind of diversify those income streams.
But the book also makes the point that earning a high income doesn't automatically guarantee financial freedom.
That's absolutely right. And it provides examples of individuals who, who earn substantial incomes, but they've accumulated very little in savings due to, either high levels of spending or just poor financial management decisions. So this